Class 10 Biology, Chapter 3, How Do Organisms Reproduce, Video number 5. In this presentation, I am going to discuss about how sexual reproduction occurs in human beings. Under this topic, I am going to discuss about puberty and pubertal changes, male reproductive system, female reproductive system, fertilization and development of embryo, menstruation, and about the reproductive health. Human beings, when we talk about, are unisexual organisms. We human beings are unisexual. Why unisexual? Because the male and the female reproductive organs are present in separate individuals, and there is sexual dimorphism seen. There is sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism because one can easily differentiate between a male and a female. Now, the slide that you see here, this shows the different stages of development of an individual. The first stage is called as the infancy, when a child is born. The child is, like you find after the child is born, lots of changes occurs. Right from the birth, all the organ systems are present in the body of the child. But then all the organ systems are functional except for the reproductive system, which is also present, but it becomes functional only when the child reaches puberty. That is the beginning of the adolescence phase. So the first stage is the infancy stage, and once the child is born, that is in the infancy stage, till the child reaches the adolescence, you find there will be some changes that occur. Now, what are those changes? You will find that there is an increase in the height that is taking place. There will be increase in the weight, right? Then when the child is around 2 years or 6 months or 7 months, then you start seeing that the child starts developing milk teeth. Then by the age of 7 to 8 years, the milk teeth are shed and they are replaced by the permanent teeth. So these changes you find till the child reaches the age of say 10 years or 12 years. These changes you'll find in the children. At the age of 10 to 12 years, that is when the child reaches puberty, that age you find there are some additional changes that occurs both in males and females. That is the age that marks the beginning of development for sexual maturity. And this age that marks the beginning of development for sexual maturity is called as puberty. This is called as puberty. So till the child has reached puberty, the changes I've said you increase in height, weight, appearance of milk teeth, shedding of milk teeth, and then the permanent teeth arise. So those things occur. But once the child has reached puberty, some additional changes are seen in males and females. Some of these changes are common and some you find will be exclusively in males and females. So this age that marks, this is the age, that puberty is the age when the reproductive organs or the reproductive system becomes functional. I said you initially this system is not functional. Why is the reproductive system not functional right from the beginning? It is because initially the resources, the raw materials, or the food that is taken by the individual that will be used for the general body growth. Okay, because the body also has to grow. So for the general body growth, the resources will be used up. Once the body has reached an adult-like size, then after that the resources will be used up for sexual maturity, for reaching sexual maturity. So this is the reason why the system is not functional right from the beginning. So that system, the reproductive system or the reproductive organs start functioning only when the child or the individual reaches puberty. Okay, and this puberty, it is the age that marks the beginning of development for sexual maturity. That is what is called as puberty. Some changes when you see these, when the males, and this puberty, it is achieved at a certain age. In case of girls, you find that they achieve puberty at the age of 10 to 14 years, right? This may vary, okay? And for boys, the puberty, it is achieved by the age of 13 to 15 years. So it's not the same, it's not same for all. Some reach puberty quite early, some quite late, but this is achieved by all. Once the child has achieved puberty, it enters into a different phase. That is, the child will no more be called as a individual, will no more be called as child. The individuals will be said to be as adolescents. They are called as adolescents. And these adolescents, that is, they enter the phase of adolescence. And this adolescence, it's a period, we can say it's a period between where you find there's a transformation from childhood to adulthood. Okay, so that is what is called as adolescence. And the beginning of adolescence, it is like adolescence begins when the child or when the individual reaches or achieves puberty. Now let us study what are those changes that occurs in males and females once they have reached their puberty. There are some changes which you find is common. Now what are the common changes? You find there is a sudden growth spurt. You find there is a sudden increase in height. Okay, so there is growth spurt which you see both in case of boys and girls. Other thing is the skin becomes oily. The other change that you see in boys and girls is their skin becomes oily. That's because of the increased activity of oil secreting glands, and because of that you find there is appearance of pimples and acne. So this is also a common change. Then you find there's development of hair in different parts of the body, that is under the arms, in the pubic region. In all these parts you find this thin hairs appears on the limbs also. So these are some common changes that you find in both boys and girls. But there are some changes which are exclusive to males and females, and that's because of the hormones that are secreted. I said you that when an individual reaches puberty, the reproductive organs become functional. So the male reproductive primary sex organs of male, that is the testis, it starts producing a hormone which is called as testosterone. That's called as testosterone. This is the male sex hormone. And in case of females, the ovaries, which is a primary sex organ, produces a hormone estrogen. And this sex hormones, they are responsible for bringing about lots of changes. What are those secondary sexual characters that develop in males which are different from that of the females? You find when you talk about the voice, the males develop a low pitch voice. That's because of the enlargement of the voice box or the larynx, right? There is appearance of beard and mustache. So you also perform, you see that the beards and mustache or the facial hair appears in case of males. That is another change. Then there's widening of shoulders. So widening of shoulders and narrowing of waist. This is another change that you see in case of the males. And the reproductive organs, they become they become larger in size. So they start developing. So these are the changes that you see in case of males. In case of females, the body becomes more curvier. This is a change that you see. The hip region becomes wider. There's a gain, weight gain on the hips. That's because of the deposition of fat, right? So that is another change that you see. When we talk about the female develops a high pitch voice, a shrilling voice. So this is another change that you see. And this development of breast. So these are the changes. And one more change that you see, or one more change that occurs in female, is the initiation of menstruation. Okay, so these are the secondary sexual characters that develop in the females. So once the child has when the individual has reached puberty, these are the changes that occurs. I said you there are some changes which are common and some which will differentiate the male from the female, and they are what are called as a secondary sexual characters. Now talking about the reproductive system. Now the reproductive system, it is divided into two. You can divide the reproductive system, the organs, into two. One is the primary sex organ and there is the secondary or accessory sex organs. Okay, now the primary sex organs, they are also referred to as gonads. They are also called as gonads, and these are the organs which are responsible for production of gametes. That is, the function of these reproductive organs, the primary sex organs or the gonads, is to produce gametes and to produce a sex hormone. This is the function, right? So in case of male, the primary sex organ is testis. There is a pair of testes present, and females, they have got a pair of ovaries, right? Then associated with the primary sex organ are the secondary sex organs and the glands. Their role is to conduct the gametes and also to nourish the gametes. So in case of male reproductive system, the various secondary sex organs that are associated are, you've got epididymis, vas deferens, you've got the ejaculatory duct, urethra, the glands like prostate glands, Corpus glands, and some anal vesicles and penis. These are the secondary sex organs, and that of female, it is fallopian tube, uterus, vagina. So these are the secondary sex organs. Okay, and here you can see in this table the secondary sexual characters of males and females is also mentioned. Okay, so these are the secondary sexual characters, are having a low pitch voice, development of beard, broadening of shoulders, the development of mustache, narrowing of hip region. So these are all the secondary sexual characters of males, and that of females having a high pitch voice, smooth face, narrow shoulders, broader hips. So these are the secondary sexual characters of the females. Now let us discuss about the male reproductive system. Now, male reproductive system, the important organs of male reproductive system are testis, epididymis, sperm duct, seminal vesicle, urethra, penis, and scrotum. So let's see what are these and what are the functions performed by these different organs. As I said you, the primary sex organ of the male is the testis. This is one. Okay, so there are two testes present in this diagram. You see there are two testes present, and this testis is present in a sac-like structure which outside the abdominal cavity. That sac-like structure is called as the scrotum. So you can see testis located in the scrotum, and this is present outside the abdomen. The role of scrotum is to maintain the temperature of testis 1 to 3 degrees Celsius lower than the body temperature. This is the function. Okay, and this is required for formation of sperms. So that's the role of the scrotum. Now talking about the testis, you can see in this diagram, the testis, I said you just now, it has got two important roles to play. One is to produce sperms. Sperms are produced in millions. Okay, the sperms, they are the male gametes. They are the male gametes. And these are produced at a time in millions, because the sperms, they have to come out of the male body and move into the female body. So in order to increase the chances of fertilization and survival, in millions they are released by the male at a time, right? The other function of testis is to release or secrete a hormone called as testosterone. Okay, this is the hormone which is responsible for its health and development of sperms. It also is responsible for development of secondary sexual characters in the males. Now each of the sperm, this here there's only one sperm shown. This is your NCRT diagram, and you see here in this, you can see here, arising from the sperm is a highly coiled tubular portion. This tubular portion is called as the epididymis. Epididymis is around 4 to 6 meters long. It's highly coiled, and it is 4 to 6, it's very long, 4 to 6 meters long, and it's highly coiled, and it is placed at the head of the testis. Epididymis is a place where the sperms are stored. So they store the sperms till the sperms reach maturity, right? Arising from each epididymis, you can see there's a long duct. This duct is around 12 to 14 centimeters. So this duct that you see, it is around 30 to 35 centimeters long. And this duct is called as the vas deferens. You can see this duct that you see, this duct is called as the vas deferens, or it is also called as the sperm duct. It is called as vas deferens, or it is called as the sperm duct. So you can see in this diagram, this is the epididymis, which I said you is around 4 to 6 meters long, but highly coiled, the place where the sperms, they are stored till they reach their maturity. And this long tube, it leads to a thick long tube called as a vas deferens, which is around 30 to 35 centimeters long. The vas deferens, you can see here in the diagram, the vas deferens then on both the sides, it's going to first it receives the vas deferens, it will receive the duct from seminal vesicle. Seminal vesicle is a gland which produces a secretion which is required for nourishing the sperms. So the vas deferens of both the sides, it's only one shown over here. So vas deferens of both the sides will be receiving the duct. They receive the duct of from the seminal vesicle, and then after receiving the duct, this is now called the duct that comes out, that's called as the ejaculatory duct. So this duct will move, and then finally it joins the urethra. So you've learned about the human excretory system. This is the urinary bladder, and the tube you can see coming out of the urinary bladder, which is called as a urethra. So the ejaculatory duct or the sperm duct, after receiving the secretion of the seminal vesicle, it joins the urethra, and then it forms a common duct which is called as a in this it's mentioned as urethra. It is a urinogenital duct. Okay, this is called as a urinogenital duct. Why urinogenital duct? Because this is a common passage for both urine and the semen. And on the way, this urinogenital duct, which over here in class 10 you can take it as urethra, it receives secretions for two more glands. One is a prostate gland, and other is the corpus gland. This one that you see is called as a corpus gland. So all these reproductive glands or the accessory glands, they produce secretions. Okay, and those secretions produced by the glands, that is the seminal vesicle, the prostate gland, and the corpus gland, these secretions along with the sperm, that is what is called, the mixture is called as the semen. The role of the secretions produced by these glands, that is seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and the corpus gland, is one is to nourish the sperm. That is one function, because the sperms do not store any food. So that one is nourishment, and then a second function is to provide a easy passage for the sperm, to keep the sperms motile, and also to lubricate the pathway through which the sperms are moving. Okay, so that's a function of those glands. Now moving to the this urethra or the urinogenital tract. I said you the urinogenital tract is a tract which will carry both semen as well as the urine. It passes through the penis, and penis, it is the copulatory organ. This is the copulatory organ of the male, which is used to put the semen in the female reproductive tract. So that these are the parts of the male reproductive system. Okay, here the diagram is much more clearer. Here you can see these are the two testes, the epididymis, and that leading to the vas deferens collecting the secretions from seminal vesicle, and then they join the urethra, and then on the way they receives secretions from the prostate gland as well as the corpus gland, and then this passes through the penis, and finally, so both the sperm duct finally join the urethra, and then they pass out through the penis, which is the copulatory organ. So that's about the male reproductive system, and here are the functions. The testis produces sperms and testosterone. Epididymis is a place where the sperms are stored till they become mature. Sperm duct carries the sperm from the epididymis to the urethra. The secretions of all the glands are meant for, that's called as seminal fluid, which feeds the sperm, that is, it gives nourishment to the sperms, allow the sperms to swim. Okay, so that's a function. Urethra allows a passage of either urine or sperm, and that's why the urethra is also called as the urinogenital tract. The penis is a copulatory organ which is used for putting the sperms or the semen in the female reproductive tract. And the scrotum, it keeps the testis temperature lower, that is around 1 to 3 degrees lower than the body temperature that's required for formation of sperms. So that's about the male reproductive system. Now coming to the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system is a bit more complex than the male reproductive system, because it is a place, or female reproductive system is a place where both fertilization, sexual reproduction involves fusion of gametes. So both fertilization and development of embryo occurs in the female reproductive system, and that's why it's more complex than the male reproductive system. So let's see what are the important parts of the female reproductive system. The primary sex organs of the female reproductive system includes a pair of ovary, which is located in the abdominal cavity. Testis, I said you, in males is present outside the abdomen, outside the body in the scrotum. But ovaries, they are located in the abdominal cavity. And when a child is born, when a girl child is born, right from the birth, you find there are thousands and thousands of immature eggs. There are thousands and thousands of immature eggs, also called as follicles, right? So there are many eggs present in the ovary. Okay, and but then that time the eggs are not released. Once the girl has reached puberty, then a cyclic event starts in the girls. This cyclic event is called as the menstrual cycle, or it's also called as the ovarian cycle, which is of 28 days. And during this 28 days, changes occurs both in ovary as well as in the uterus, right? So in this 28 days, on the 14th to 16th day of this cycle, one of the two ovary, just make it very clear that one of the two ovary will release a single egg. Only one egg is released alternately, once this ovary or sometimes this. So this one of the two ovary releases the single egg on the 14th to 16th day. This release of egg is called as ovulation. This is called as ovulation. Okay, so and then after that this egg will remain for 1 day. If suppose it is fertilized, then development of embryo occurs. If the egg does not get fertilized, then it dies or it is expelled out and menstruation occurs. Okay, so about that I'll discuss later on. First, now let us know the functions. So ovary has got two functions to perform. One is to release ovum, that is the egg. Ovum is the female gamete. It's also called as the egg. And the other function is to release a hormone. Hormone is estrogen, which is responsible for development of secondary sexual characters in females. And also there's another hormone which is called as progesterone. Progesterone, which is required for maintenance of pregnancy. It is the progesterone which will help in thickening of the lining of this uterus and for implantation of the embryo. So it helps in maintenance of pregnancy. Now each of the ovary, if you see here lying very close to the ovary, is a duct. This duct is called as a fallopian tube. It's called as a fallopian tube, or it is also called as the oviduct. Okay, fallopian tube or oviduct, which is around 10 to 12 centimeters long. and this oviduct or the fallopian, so rising, like lying very close. I would not say it's not connected directly to the ovaries, like rather the free end of this fallopian tube will be lying very close. It's funnel shape and it almost overlaps the ovary, right? So this is a 10 to 12 centimeters long tube which is called as a oviduct, right? And this oviduct or the fallopian tube is a place where fertilization occurs, so fusion of male and female gamete to form ovum. Okay, that is what is called as fertilization occurs in this oviduct, right? Now these two oviducts that you see, these two oviducts then join a muscular sac-like structure. This muscular sac-like structure that you see, this is called as the uterus. Uterus is a place where development of embryo occurs. So development of embryo takes place in the uterus. The inner wall of uterus is very important. This is called as endometrium. And this is very important because it is a place where the embryo will get attached and get nourishment from the mother's body. Now you see the lower end of this uterus is constricted. It's quite narrow, and this narrow end of the uterus or the lower end is called as a cervix. The cervix lead to a long tube. The cervix lead to a 8 to 9 centimeters long tube which is called as a vagina. This vagina serves as a copulatory organ. It is a copulatory organ of female because this is a place where sperms are released by the male. Okay, this is also called as the birth canal because the young one comes out of the mother's body after complete development through the vagina, and this is also a passage for menstrual flow. So these are the important parts of the female reproductive system, that is ovary, oviduct, uterus. The lower end of it is narrow, called a cervix, the vagina. So these are the important parts. The primary sex organs are the ovaries, which release the gametes and are also responsible for secretion of the hormone. So here this table shows all the functions of the female reproductive system, the organs of female versus the ovary producing the hormone. I've told you about this, and the site for ovum synthesis or production of ovum. Fallopian tube is a place where fertilization occurs. Then you've got uterus, which is a place where development of embryo takes place. Then cervix, and then you've got the vagina, which is the birth canal, and the passage of the place where the sperms are put into the female reproductive system. Now let us discuss about how fertilization and development of embryo occurs in the female. I said you that in females, once they have reached puberty, a cyclic event starts which is called as a menstrual cycle. This cyclic event is called as a menstrual cycle, which is of 28 days, and on 14th to 16th day of this cycle, a single egg, only one egg is released, generally one egg, okay, a single egg is released by one of the two ovaries, right? This release of egg, I said you, it is called as ovulation. So suppose ovulation has happened, okay, ovulation has happened, the ovary has released the egg, and at the same time the sperms, so here you can see in this diagram is showing the entire development of the ovary. So at the same time the sperms have also been released. Okay, let me just take another diagram over here. Let's study over here that the ovaries, they have released the egg, that is ovulation has happened, and at the same time the male has put billions of sperms in the female's body. Then these sperms, it's not that they will move in a specific direction, they'll move randomly, and on the way many of the sperms die. That's why, to increase the chances of fertilization, because the sperms come in contact with the external environment, the chances of their death is more. So that's why sperms are released in millions. So the sperms, they move randomly, and some of the sperms will finally reach the place where the egg is present. So here, if this is the egg will get surrounded by some few sperms, and of these few sperm, one of the sperm will be able to fuse with the egg, and with this fusion the rest of the sperms will die. The nucleus of the sperm will be let into the egg, and then finally after this, like this, if this is the egg having the nucleus, the sperm will release its nucleus, the rest part will remain out, and then finally these two nuclei will fuse, and then a single nucleus is formed, and with the formation of this fusion of nucleus, a single cell zygote is formed. So this is how fertilization happens, and this fertilization, it takes place in the oviduct. So you can see here, this is a diagram, and this shows how fertilization happens. So you can see in this diagram, the egg fuses with the sperm and a single cell is formed, as a result of which is referred to as a zygote. Once the zygote is formed, the zygote now starts dividing. Okay, and this fertilization occurs where? It occurs in the oviduct. Okay, so it will occur in the oviduct or the fallopian tube. So once fertilization is over, the zygote starts dividing into 2 cells, then into 4 cell stage, 8 cell stage. It will go on dividing and finally it forms a ball of cells, which is called as this is the embryo. It's also called as a blastocyst, but then that term is not mentioned in your NCERT. So this will go on dividing, the zygote will go on dividing, and as it divides, it will just move down through the oviduct and finally it reaches the uterus. On reaching the uterus, you can see in this diagram, once this embryo, the developing embryo, reaches the uterus on the 6th to 8th day, this embryo, because the egg of a human being does not contain any food stored, so the embryo for its further development has to get attached to the uterine wall. So on the 6th to 8th day, this embryo, when it touches the uterine wall, it produces finger-like projections called as a villi, and with the help of this villi or the finger-like projection, the embryo will get attached. It gets attached to the female uterine wall. Okay, this attachment of this embryo to the uterine wall is called as implantation. So since every month the ovary releases a single egg, the uterus, since it has to receive the developing embryo, every month the uterus also will prepare itself. It also prepares itself to receive the embryo, whether fertilization happens or not, but then a change you'll find in the uterus also. For receiving the embryo, if fertilization has happened, the uterine wall every month will become thick, spongy and richly supplied with blood vessels, because it has to receive the embryo, right? So here I am repeating again, the embryo after reaching the uterus will produce finger-like projections called as a villi, with the help of which it gets attached to the uterine wall. And at the point of attachment, now a disc-shaped tissue develops. This attachment is called as implantation. So embryo now has to develop into a fetus, right? So at the point of attachment, a disc-shaped tissue develops, a spongy disc-shaped tissue develops, which is called as a placenta. This is called as a placenta. You can see here, the tissue is called as a placenta. Okay, so this is how after implantation the embryo will get. You can see here, this is the diagram of the embryo being attached to the uterine wall. So this is the mother's womb, the embryo or the fetus, and what you see as blue is the placenta. Okay, so this is a disc-shaped tissue and all the requirements of the growing embryo. What are the requirements? The embryo requires amino acids. The embryo cannot take in food. So the mother will take food, digest the food to glucose, amino acids, fatty acids or whatever, and that is given into the embryo's body, and the embryo is going to produce waste materials. So this waste material will be let out into the mother's body through the placenta. So these are the functions of placenta. Okay, and if you see the placenta, you'll find that on the embryo side you find there will be lots of villi present. There are lots of villi present on the embryo side. Okay, and on the mother's side you find lots of blood spaces present. You can see here in this diagram, though it's not important from NCERT point of view or class 10, but you see the embryo, this placenta, it is made from both mother's and the embryo's tissue. On the embryo side there are lots of villi present. You can see these are the villi, and the mother sides you find there are blood spaces present. So through this placenta the exchange of material between the embryo and the mothers occurs. The nutrient, all these points are not required, but the nutrients uptake, the uptake of gases, that is oxygen. Okay, oxygen will be taken through the placenta, food will be taken from the mother's body through the placenta, and waste materials and the carbon dioxide is again thrown out through the placenta, from the embryo's body into the mother's body through the placenta. So those are the functions. Now coming to the next part, if fertilization has happened, I've told you these things take place. Okay, and this entire phase of development, this entire process of development, that is from fertilization till the embryo has totally developed into a fetus developing all the body parts, this period is called as a gestation period. It's called as a gestation period, which in case of human beings is around 240 days or 9 months or 40 weeks. So after 240 days the embryo will be totally developed. It will be having all the body parts developed, the limbs, the hands and heart and all the organs. And once the embryo is fully developed, once the embryo, now it no more be called as embryo, because once the body parts are visible, the embryo is referred to as fetus. So once the fetus is fully developed, then it is The mother will give birth to the embryos. It is expelled out of the mother's body, and the placenta is also thrown out. So this is how the development of embryo occurs in the mother's womb. Okay, it is in the uterus. Uterus is also called as womb, and entire requirement of this embryo will occur through the placenta. So if fertilization has happened, these things will occur. That is, if on the 14th to 16th day, as I said you, if suppose the eggs have been released, and at the same time if sperms are also available, then fertilization will occur, and then the development of embryo will occur. But if suppose fertilization has not happened, okay, if for suppose fertilization has not happened, the egg has matured and it has been released. I have told you about the ovulation, that after the egg has matured, one egg will be released. If egg has been released and there is no sperms available, then what will happen to this egg? The egg is going to die within 1 day. So the egg is going to die, okay, 1 day, within 1 day, and after that what happens is what is called as menstruation. So why menstruation occurs, let us study now. I have just now told you that the ovary releases egg every month, and the cyclic event occurs. If egg gets fertilized, then the fertilized egg will get attached to the uterus wall. So since the egg is released every month, the uterus also has to prepare itself every month to receive the fertilized egg. Okay, and how does it prepare itself? It prepares itself by becoming thick and spongy. You can see here the uterine wall has become thick and spongy. Okay, it has become thick and spongy and richly supplied with blood vessels and glandular, because this is a preparation for in case fertilization has happened. So it is ready now to receive the fertilized egg. If fertilization happens, then the thick uterine wall will remain intact. But if suppose fertilization has not happened, egg was released but fertilization has not happened, then this thick uterine wall, the wall which has become extra thick, this wall is going to break. The wall break and is shed out through the vagina in the form of blood and mucus. And this process of shedding of the uterine wall in the form of blood and mucus when fertilization has not happened is what is called as menstruation. Okay, so in case the egg is not fertilized, the wall breaks. So here this diagram shows quite well that the preparation of the uterus prepares itself by becoming extra thick to receive fertilized egg. Okay, but if fertilization has not happened, then the thick wall is no more required and it is thus shed along with the dead egg. It is shed out. Okay, and after it is shed again, because again the next cycle the egg is going to be released, so again this uterine wall will be built up. Okay, and this menstruation will occur for around 3 to 5 days. In your NCERT it's written as 1 to 8 days, so it is around 3 to 7 days or 5 days this menstruation occurs. The beginning of menstruation is the beginning of the cycle, and then again on the 14th day the egg will be released, the uterine wall will become thicker and thicker, and if suppose fertilization has not happened, again the wall will be shed. So this is a cyclic event that keeps on happening in the uterus. These changes occurs in the uterus and the ovary. Okay, till the female has reached. In case of males, we say that males are fertile throughout their life, but females, they are only fertile to a certain age. The first menstrual flow, which marks the beginning of sexual life or reproductive life of the female, it is called as menarche. That's called as a menarche. Okay, that is the menarche marks that the girl has reached puberty. And the last menstrual, and this will be happening at the age of 10 to 13 years, as I said to you, this is the age when one reaches puberty, right? And the last menstrual flow, which will mark the end of the reproductive life of a female, that's called as a menopause. This is called as a menopause, that occurs at the age of 45 to 50 years in case of females. So females have a fixed reproductive life, okay, lifespan, but males, they are fertile throughout the life. The last topic in this chapter that we have is reproductive health, which is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being that leads to a safe and satisfying reproductive life. That is what is reproductive health. Here the definition is given as a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being, and not merely absence of infirmity, that is weakness or disease, in all matters relating to the reproductive system and to the functions of the process, right? Functions and process. Now here these are the points that shows what is the importance of reproductive health. It is important because it creates awareness in both males and females regarding the fertility regulating methods. It's important for reduction of number of children, that is to limit the size of the family. Smaller the family size, the better will be the resources that are made use of. Okay, and also it creates importance about having proper spacing between the children. Then the resources, that is whatever resources is available in the family, that can be used in a better way for the rearing of children. It also creates awareness about the catching up of sexually transmitted diseases, okay, and manage disorders related to reproductive system by getting them treated at the earliest. So this is the significance or importance of reproductive health. Okay, now coming to so as I said you that having a smaller family is always better, that everyone knows, because India, you know, our country, there's a population explosion and the population size is going on increasing. So in order, and because of the increased population, though the government's major of the money or the resources of the government is going for just meeting our basic needs, if we need to have more development, then the size of the family has to be reduced. So this reproductive health also creates importance about the family planning, having smaller families, so that the resources can be in a better way used. And then it creates awareness about the different types of contraceptive devices. There are many contraceptive devices or methods that are used to avoid unwanted pregnancies. Okay, this is very important. Contraception is also quite important because this is required for maintaining the health of the mother. Female is a body where the embryo develops, fertilization occurs. And if suppose the mother or the female is not ready to bear children because of age factor or because of any other factor, then this is going to severely affect the health of the mother. So this reproductive health creates awareness about the various methods of contraception, which will not only help in limiting the size of the family, but also will help in keeping the maintaining the proper health of the mother, and also will prevent, some of these devices will help the prevention of spread of sexually transmitted diseases, right? So this is about the significance of reproductive health. Let us study about the sexually transmitted diseases. Sexually transmitted diseases are the diseases which are caused due to the sexual contacts with an infected person. Okay, so if a person is suffering from some kind of infectious diseases like HIV, AIDS, warts, or syphilis or gonorrhea, these are all examples of sexually transmitted diseases which can get transmitted from a person to a healthy person through sexual contact. Okay, of these diseases, gonorrhea and syphilis, they are examples of bacterial diseases, whereas warts and HIV or AIDS, that is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, are the examples of viral diseases. Let's now study about the contraception, which is the method of preventing unwanted pregnancies. Okay, so there are different devices or methods used. You've got the barrier method, then you've got the chemical method and the surgical method. So barrier method of contraception, this includes various devices like you've got the condoms and the cervical caps, and the main purpose of this device is to prevent the entry of sperm into the female reproductive tract. That is the main purpose, right? There are some chemical methods also. Chemical methods includes the use of oral pills. Okay, there are some oral pills which will change the hormonal balance, and that because of which ovulation in the, if female takes it, then the ovulation will not happen or egg is not produced. Okay, that is a method. That's a method, and if ovulation does not happen, then obviously fertilization will not occur. So there are different, with different names, there are different pills available, and these pills will also help in preventing the these pills also prevent unwanted pregnancies. But these pills, which are also called as, this is called as oral contraception, which is taken orally. Those oral pills, it's taken into the mouth, and these pills, they are actually, they may cause, because overconsumption of that may lead to different kinds of diseases also. It may harm, it may cause cancer also in the female, so it should not be taken much, right? Then you also have got IUCD, which stands for intrauterine contraceptive devices. This is intrauterine contraceptive device. It is actually, these devices are in the form of loops and tees. Okay, either made up of plastic or some metal like copper. This famous one is the copper tee. Okay, so this is intrauterine. Intra means within, uterine is uterus. So this loops or tees, they are placed in the uterus, and so this is a copper tee. Okay, this is an intrauterine contraceptive device, and see how it is placed. It's placed in the uterus of the female by skilled nurses or by doctors. They are placed. Okay, and these, if it's a copper T, then that releases copper ions, or there may be some hormones released, and these, the chemicals or the ions that are released may either, that will check pregnancy by either preventing implantation of the embryo. Suppose fertilization has happened, then that will prevent implantation. It will prevent the embryo to get implanted. Or some of them may be spermicidal also, that is, they may kill the sperms, and so fertilization will be avoided. So these are the chemical methods, but again, these devices should be used by, or should be put into the female tract by a skilled nurse or doctor, because that may cause irritation and may cause infection also. The contraceptive devices also includes some surgical methods. So here is the surgical method which is employed on male is called as vasectomy, where the vast difference, I've already discussed about the male reproductive system. So in vasectomy, the vast difference, both the vast difference, try to recall, I've told you vast difference is a passage of sperm. It is through the vast difference the sperm is let out into the urethra. So the vast difference, both the vast difference in males is cut, and the cut end is tied. Okay, so the cut end will be tied, so sperms will not be released. But this is a reversible method. If required, this can be again ligated. Okay, the tubes can be fused. Similarly, in case of females, there is a method that is used, a surgical method, which is called as tubectomy. This is called as tubectomy, where the oviduct, try to recall, I've told you, oviduct is a place where fertilization occurs. So in tubectomy, the oviducts of both the sides are cut, and the cut end is tied. So this is a surgical method that is employed in the males and the females. There's a other way of, that's also a surgical method, but generally misused, that is abortion. Okay, so through abortion also unwanted pregnancy can be avoided, but thing is that this is misused in our country. In many places it's misused, and especially this, what they do is they go for illegal sex determination. Once they find that the fetus which is inside the mother's womb is a female, then they go for abortion of the female fetus, which is called as female feticide. And this is the reason why the male to female sex ratio is going on changing. Okay, for a healthy society, this female male sex ratio has to be maintained, but it's not being maintained because of the female feticide, which is being practiced in our country illegally also, because now the government has made it as an offense. On the basis of the presentation, here's an assignment for you. The first question is, what are the secondary sexual characters that develops in males and females on reaching puberty? Next question is, what are the functions of male and female gonads? Why are sperms produced in millions, whereas eggs are produced in one or few? Where in human body does fertilization and development of embryo takes place? What is placenta? Write its function. What happens when the egg is not fertilized? And discuss the different methods of contraception.